that on the program today. So I urge you to keep the dial locked and follow us as we unfold all of these. But first, let's look at the 2022 draft budget. And of course, it's no longer news that has been presented. And like I said earlier, so many expectations, but would we say our expectations were not met? I am not in a position to say that. So we'll go to our guest in the studio, starting from Yusuf Goje. Yusuf Goje, the draft budget 2022 has been submitted. As an active citizen that you are, first of all, tell us your impression about it.
Well, the purpose why you have government is for government to provide security and welfare to the citizens, that is the people. And the budget is the financial tool that is used to ensure that government meets the security and welfare needs of the people. So this means that the budget should be a compilation of prioritized citizens' needs that the government is planning based on available revenue and resources to carry out those projects and interventions that would deliver on the needs and security, the welfare and security needs of the people. So that is why the budget after the Constitution is said to be the most important document in the life of any nation. So it means that at any point that the budget is being formulated, the first stage is to ensure that the people who the budget is meant to address their security and welfare needs are consulted to ensure that what would be approved as budget for a particular year is coming from the needs of the people, not just the needs of the few privileged people. And I believe that is why all over the world, governments are initiating reforms to ensure that all platforms that would enable bottom-top approach to engaging citizens during budget formulation is taken advantage of. Kaduna State in 2017 signed into what is called the Open Government Partnership, which is a commitment to ensure that governance will be carried out in a transparent, accountable and responsive way. And when we talk about responsive way, it means that there would be citizens engagement, and as a result of the feedback or the input of citizens, government would respond and carry out its policies, programs, and services in line with that feedback. So over 6 years now, the Kaduna State government, having signed into the OGP, has consistently engaged with some civil societies in Kaduna State using the Open Government Partnership as a platform. And as a result, we have seen the state government hold stakeholders' engagement on the medium-term expenditure framework in fulfillment of the Fiscal Responsibility Law 2016. Outside that, again, we have seen over the past years where the state government invites civil society working within the Open Government Partnership space to provide those fundamental information in terms of projections and assumptions upon which government wants to formulate its budget. So at that level, we have seen that engagement, but that is usually restricted to a few civil society in recognition of the fact that not everybody can be on the table at the same time. So it is assumed that the civil societies invited should have consulted with their constituencies and providing voice to the voiceless on the table. So then secondly, another area that we have advocated over this period, and we are hopeful that this year it might pass, is the community being used to ensure that citizens' needs are captured into the budget. But that has not happened at the state level. It has happened at the local government level, and we have tracked it and we have analyzed it, and we have seen the performance at that level. But the advocacy has been for the state, because that is the only way you can get more people to participate and make inputs into the budget. Thankfully, this year, a number of local governments were able to put together their community development charters, and together with the state level civil society, we have submitted it to the Planning and Budget Commission. Okay. So we hope that when we analyze the budget, we'll see that. But again, just to say that the presentation by the governor came at a great surprise, as a great surprise to many of us, because over the past 6 years, town hall meetings have been held consistently before the budget is taken to the State House of Assembly. But this time around, we don't know the reason why the government decided not to engage citizens in a town hall meeting, but submit it presently. Until date, we are yet to see the draft budget. So this has gone against the culture we are used to as civil society and many other stakeholders, where government has always provided those platforms. They had always put the draft budget on the government website. I know at least more 24 hours or 48 hours before town hall meetings, but this has been missed. So the only thing we know about the 2022 draft budget that has been presented to the State House of Assembly is the governor's speech. Aside that, we don't know what is inside, what has been scaled through, whether citizens' inputs have been captured. Yeah. And this totally goes against the culture that the state government has built over the past 6 years. And that is why, for us, this calls for concern. But whatever it is, that might be the reason, because the government itself has not failed to blow its own trumpet for holding those town hall meetings. And we also know that the 23 local governments under a state-driven reform last 2 months carried out town hall meetings. So we are wondering why when it has come to the state budget, we under the same kind of reforms, and the state government is keeping that. So we hope that the government will be forthcoming to reasons why that has happened, because if that doesn't happen to a large extent, it reduces the trust citizens will have in government processes. Because when processes and reforms are already being established, and all of a sudden there is a shift and no clear-cut explanation to why that shift happened, then really we should be concerned. But thankfully, the governor's speech has given us some figures and some information around where government is prioritizing in the 2022 draft budget.
All right. Thank you so much, Yusuf. One great concern that you said was that the fact that the citizens were not invited to any form of town hall so that they'll know the level of their input in it. I'll come to Danjuma now. Why is it important that the citizens be involved in the process? Because before now, many years ago, we were doing it the way it was being done right from the military era, and we seem to have been moving. Were we really moving? What was the level of transparency? And why is it even important that the citizens be engaged in the process itself?
Thank you very much. Yes, even during the military era, citizens have had chances and opportunities to sponsor or nominate projects that they will want their communities to benefit. And the issue of the right to participate in government of the citizens is something that is guaranteed by our own constitution. It is very important that citizens know what their government can do within a fiscal year and what cannot be obtained. That is because the issue of development is not just for government alone. It is a collective task and responsibility. And in many ways, that is why government produces plans, produces sector implementation plans, and tells, oh, this is what you're supposed to do. This is the backbone of the vehicle that we're also providing for citizens to leverage upon to achieve the deliverables and required results in critical sectors. And many a times we say citizens, we are not just talking about people within what you call the mainstream civil society. There are market associations who are being affected by every decision government is taking. And if government is taking these decisions again, these decisions are going to be backed again by figures and revenue forecasts on how these are to be achieved. And so the people who bear the brunt of paying up for the revenue that is required to finance a budget, the people for whom this budget is going to be implemented. That is to say that if the government is providing or improving access to potable water, it is going to be because of the citizenry who are in need of it. And now these citizens must know whether or not these are captured in the budget. As it is today, it is not just about the town hall engagement. It is about whether or not the draft estimates that the representatives of the people at the State House of Assembly now are having is actually out in the public domain and available for citizens to engage. It is important that the needs that people have sponsored in their communities around what could enable a safer environment for education, a safer, a more profitable practice around agriculture, and even the issue of socio-economic development generally are adequately captured. What are the needs that communities have sponsored that are related to health? Are they captured in this budget? And so these are germane questions because we as civil society are quick to tell the people that these are vehicles, these are doors that the government have guaranteed will stay open for them to access, to make sure that every penny, every naira, every kobo that government is spending in Kaduna State is targeted at meeting their needs. And these needs are in every way obvious. You know that there are challenges, myriads of them, that we have found ourselves in recent times. Risk factors, so to say, that are having devastating effect on nearly all the critical areas of our endeavors as a people. Name it, even in education, we've had reasons to shut down schools. We've had reasons to, selectively choose which schools to stay open, what classes to stay open, and what have you. And if government is spending money towards ameliorating such challenges, it is also important that the citizens are informed and also provide feedback to government on whether or not these measures that they have identified are critical and just enough to solving some of these challenges. So some of us are excited when we read from the laws like the public financial management laws that were enacted in 2016, especially around the fiscal responsibility, that this consultation around the budget will be guaranteed by that law. And to find that the same State House of Assembly that have passed that law is now faced with accepting a budget draft proposal that is not conforming to the guided processes around this fiscal responsibility is actually a thing of great concern.
Yeah, you're listening to Ground Zero on Invicta 98.9 FM. And on the program today, we are looking at the Kaduna State 2020 draft budget, a review of citizens' engagement, and we'll also be talking about local government accountability mechanism, improving transparency in the procurement process. And still talking about the draft budget, I'll come to Yusuf Goje now.
Yeah.
As it stands now, what do you think, or how do you think the citizens can still engage the government? Because as it stands now, it's been sent to the State House of Assembly. Is there any other thing that the citizen can do at this point?
Yes, first of all is that we have already started demanding that government should make public the draft budget so that we can engage when we don't even know in details what the budget is talking about. Because all we know that based on the governor's presentation is that about 233 billion naira is what will be spent in 2022. Out of that, about 146 is is going to capital expenditure, which is 63% of the budget. Then the recurrent expenditure is about 87.6 billion naira, which is 37%. So those are some of the information that we have. We also know where some of the monies would be coming in, like the government the value added tax. The government is saying they are expecting 24 billion naira. Internal loans and credit about 100 million, internal grants 21 million, external loans 19 billion, external grants 12 billion, sales of government assets at about 500 million naira. Then I think IGR is around 64 billion naira or thereabout. So this is basically what we know, and it is because it is what is in the governor's speech. But for us to be able to engage effectively and in the spirit of the open government partnership that the Kaduna State government has signed into and has been celebrated for, I think it is high time that, yes, we understand that processes have been skipped. We can't bring back what has happened because it has already been presented to the State House of Assembly. But I think we need that document urgently because it is the people's document. It is the needs of the people that is supposed to be in that document. So immediately that we get access to that document, civil society will do their analysis, then bring out issues for advocacy, where we hope to engage the Kaduna State House of Assembly on areas that we feel there are gaps that need to be filled, and even areas that we feel government has done well and needs to be commended. We will do that where necessary. So this is the two major things, but we are hearing that there are feelers that the state government might want to also hold a town hall meeting. So we wait to see how all of that will play out. But the major thing for us is that before the budget is passed into law, we need government to come up and say, based on evidence, this is how citizens made inputs. This is the evidence of citizens' inputs that we have captured and has been approved into the final budget. That is the only evidence that would prove to people that, yes, these are citizens' needs. Why the CDC is important for as evidence is because you have people nominating projects, very influential people nominating projects from their communities. But what that lacks is that that decision is not being taken in an inclusive, participatory, and democratic process to say this thing that is being suggested from this community or is being proposed for this community is as a result of a collective decision where everybody's on the table, and it is the communities that agree that this is their problem, not just the few influential people nominating projects and we say citizens are participating. So this is why we wait to see. Thankfully, the Planning and Budget Commission has done well to work with civil society to see that they collect some of these CDCs from, I think, between 5 or 6 local governments, but I've heard that more local governments submitted. I don't know the exact numbers of today, but we'll be looking out using what we call the CDC influence tracker to see how many of those projects were informed by influenced the 2022 budget, and what is the amount, what is the percentage. So then we compare it to the total budget to say this percentage is what citizens directly contributed to the process through an inclusive, participatory, and democratic method.
Yeah. You're listening to Ground Zero on Invicta 98.9 FM. Let's take some messages, and immediately after those messages, we'll come back and continue our discussion right here on the program. So keep the dial locked. All right, welcome back from that commercial timeout. You're listening to Ground Zero on Invicta 98.9 FM. And today on the program, we are looking at the 2022 draft budget presented to the State House of Assembly by the Kaduna State Governor. And right now, we'll be looking at the local government accountability mechanism and seeing how all of this will translate into a better life for the citizens. And like you had me earlier, I have with me in the studio Yusuf Goje and, of course, Danjuma Abbas Dangwa. And together we are looking at these issues, and they are shedding more lights on all of this issue. Now, talking about the local government accountability mechanism and the different strategies and actions that is designed to strengthen fiscal sustainability and improve public service delivery, and how it impacts on our lives. Yusuf, I'll come back to you first before I move on to Danjuma. The local government accountability mechanism, give us a little bit more background on it and why it is so important now that we talk about this.
Very much. The local government remains the closest tier of government to the people, and as you are aware, on a monthly basis, they have their own share of the federal FAC allocations, and it is important that for we to reduce poverty, for we to reduce unemployment, for we to reduce illiteracy, and to address issues around access to universal healthcare, local government system is the most critical. And that is why it is important that issues around accountability at the local government level is strengthened and it's more attention is placed on it. The local government accountability mechanism was actually initiated by the Ministry for Local Government, Civil Society Partners, and PEL, to ensure that there's a permanent dialogue platform where both government and citizens groups, especially their representatives, sit to discuss on ways on how to ensure that the resources coming into these local governments are managed and utilized in a way that would improve the living standard of the ordinary man at the grassroots. So in doing that, in each of the 23 local governments of Kaduna State, a technical working group was inaugurated, made up of 10% from government officials and 10 from representatives of citizens, various citizens groups in each of the local government. And these technical working groups were trained on the various ongoing governance reforms in the local governments. That is including key components of the local government development plan, like the implementation strategy and the M&E framework that provides citizens engagement component and how those components can be activated. Then secondly, how to increase communities' participation in the community development charter process. Then thirdly, to see how to strengthen what is called the local government fiscal transparency, accountability, and sustainability program. Then after these trainings, each of these technical working groups working together developed their 2 years action plan on what they would do to ensure that all these local government reforms are strengthened and are made more effective to ensure that governance at the local government serves the people better. So having done that, it was observed that it is not enough to sit down and talk about budget formulation and policy and reforms alone. The only way we can ensure that service delivery in local governments are of the right specification, right quality, and there is value for money is for citizens to begin to pick interest in projects that are being executed by local governments, councils in the 23 local government areas. It is only through that we can put an eye on how resources are being managed. And I read somewhere that about 70% of public funds that are stolen away are done through contracts. So procurement process is one of the ways that citizens can play a critical role in reducing corruption in governance by ensuring that when a contract is given, that the quality of materials that was written and allocated monies for are the kinds of materials that are brought, and the quality, the work being done is based on the specifications that have been designed for that work. And at the end of the day, that particular project will ensure that there is value. What does that value mean? It means that if it's a primary healthcare center, that as a result of building that primary healthcare center with all the equipment and facilities, that will have a reduction in child and maternal mortality rate. If it's school, it means that as a result of that school, the school is able to contribute to reducing the literacy rate and what have you. So that is what the local government accountability mechanism seeks to, and that is why the goal of coming up with strategies to strengthen it in order to improve transparency in the procurement process.
Yes, improving transparency in the procurement process indeed is a desire of every citizen. Let's say every citizen, because of course we know that there may be one or two of those persons that really want to bend the arm so that they can have some undue advantage over the others. Coming to Danjuma Abbas Dangwa now, the mechanism, as explained, is to promote transparency in the process. Yeah. Now, improving and increasing transparency in the process, how does it impact on the lives of the average person on ground? Because I know that in some other clime, there's nothing like this on ground, and the people, well, are living.
Okay. For most of us who have gone to public schools, especially at tertiary institution level, even at secondary school level, we have school facilities that are over 50 years old, and people are still enjoying the benefits of those facilities till this moment.
Yeah,
they are only being renovated and are still in useful condition. I can tell you that if I visit the boarding school I attended in my secondary school, I will not find the kitchen having most of the equipment that were installed far back then as against what we have now. Then there were even provisions for the use of gas as a source of energy to cook meals. The quality of these procurements that were done then is the reason why they are still in place till this day. You go around nearly the 774 local governments, you will find post offices that were built by the Shehu Shagari administration. And these post offices are still in good condition till date. It is just our own failure that we are unable to put them to good use even now. And so why do we have to make reference to this? It's because the cost of developing this infrastructure is quite high. And in the event that the kind of shady deals, the corruption that Yusuf Goje has spoken about, and the issue of who is using this facility, are they available for the persons who are having special needs, who will require some level of innovative measures taken, to make these facilities useful for all, are in place. You find that we have so many buildings, even in our public schools, that persons who will require the use of wheelchairs or even walking sticks because of their kind of special needs, whether being physically challenged, having some form of blindness and what have you, are unable to use these facilities. So in every way, when we want to get value for money, fiscal transparency must come into play. When we want to be sure that what the people have requested for from government is what is delivered to them, fiscal transparency must be in play. So the only way that the people can guarantee that the classrooms being built are within the specifications of what they have requested from government is through fiscal transparency. So without it, government can continue to do so much and at the end of the day realize that it has not met the needs of the people. We have cases where boreholes were constructed sometime in 2015, 2016, but till this day, no single drop of water has been benefited from those schools. And the only reason why these kind of things can happen is because the people are not empowered enough to really check and provide reasonable feedback within reasonable time to government that these projects have not been delivered as designed. And that is because fiscal transparency in itself has to be really, really strengthened and improved upon.
Okay, Yusuf.
Yeah.
How do we now strengthen it at the local government level? I'm talking in practical terms now.
Yes, one of the ways is already with Pearl and other partners working with the local government accountability mechanisms to begin to build their capacity. And in doing so, they are not bringing only the civil society to do that. They are bringing local government, either planning officers and budget officers, to learn to work together, to begin to think together and identify strategies on how to strengthen these processes. And one area again is the local government fiscal transparency, accountability and sustainability program. One of the key indicator which has an incentives attached to grant incentive attached to it is that every local government must have procurement units, and all officers within the local government must be enlightened about the procurement processes, about the procurement guidelines, and even on the law itself. So we're also working with the Kaduna State Public Procurement Authority in that direction to build the capacity of both the citizen and the representative of the government in that direction. Then aside that, community engagements, mobilizing communities, training them on this procurement process, because as I have said, the local government development plan for the has an implementation strategy and an M&E framework that provides for citizens participation in tracking projects within their community. And that tool ensures that immediately a contract is given, the local government is expected to develop a procurement manual that publishes basic information on the contract and hands it over to the village head, to the councillor and community supervisors, who would in turn be in charge of tracking and monitoring the project implementation in their communities. Then on a quarterly basis, they would put together their report into what is called the community project report cards, which is presented in a quarterly town hall meeting of stakeholders. So what happens there is that the government officials, the local government councils have their own supervisors that go to check this project. So those reports will be brought forth. Then citizens' report will also be brought forth. So there would be comparison, because sometimes it has been discovered that there might be connivance between the contractor and probably the government official. So that's why the citizens' feedback is like the balancing act, to know that, okay, in case something is being cooked under that people don't know, the citizens group, since they are the owners of that project and will be the end beneficiaries of it, it is expected that they will raise alarm in terms of any non-adherence to quality or specifications. So that tool is what civil society wants to activate it and use to support communities to track and monitor local government projects across the streets.
Is that the same thing? Is there a correlation between that and the OCD as the Open Contracted Data Standard? It's one word that keeps popping up each time that we talk about all of these. Martins.
Okay, well, the Open Contracting Data Standards is actually different from this particular information brief that the local government is expected to provide. However, in line with the public procurement law and also the guidelines, even the local governments are also expected to provide data of all contracting activities that they do. And this they also are expected to do within the state's approved open contracting data standards.
Okay.
However, that level of implementation have not been followed with the kind of enthusiasm and fervor that we would have loved to see. Some local governments have done that in time past, but they have not been consistent enough to see it through. And now, because the OCDS is the Open Contracting Data Standards is published online, it deprives again people who do not have access to IT infrastructure to access it. So the provision within the local government development plan is one that is aimed at bridging that kind of gap.
All right. You're listening to Ground Zero on Invicta 98.9 FM. We actually have almost run out of time. Let's see if we can take a call or two and also check our social media handles for messages, comments, and contributions from the listener. 081 40,989 is the number to dial, and 07087800989. That's 081 40,989 and 07087800989. And of course, on Facebook is Invicta FM Kaduna, Invicta FM Kaduna. While I know the network is really hitting us hard because there don't seem to be any network bar on this. But let's see if any call can just come in so that we can get some contributions from our listeners. 081 40,989. Okay, we'll be waiting to have some call come in. But meanwhile, we will be linking up with Abdul Bako. If we can also get him, the network is not been very, very friendly this evening. Let's see if we can get through to Abdul Bako so we can get a comment or two from him. You're listening to Ground Zero right here on Invicta 98.9 FM, and the calls are not just linking up. All right, and the line is not linking up. We'll come back to the studio and keep talking. I'll come to you now, Yusuf Goje. And actually, it will be time to give our parting shots now because we have less than 4 minutes to wrap up the program. Okay, I think I have Abdul Bako. I'll just quickly take a comment or two from Abdul Bako. Hello, Abdul Bako. Welcome to Ground Zero.
Yeah, good evening and good evening to the team public.
All right.
I just say, let me just chip in more regarding the budget and your topic of discussion, the local government accountability mechanism. You see, we must laud the system for policy reforms in governance around this jet age. But those policy reforms cannot be completed without citizens' participation. And the process of co-creation that gave room for improved engagement can only be achieved if certain milestones are met, through which openness and inclusiveness and transparency with financial prudency are attained. Otherwise, there will be issues that will seriously need redress. So aside that, I think, again, on the local government accountability mechanism, there is still an improvement where my colleagues there maybe out of time or never mentioned proper. The issue of local government Auditor General's report. Okay. Over time now, we have seen an improvement around that area too, where the local government Auditor General has gone down as far as making available documents around each of the 23 local governments so that citizens could have an input, citizens could have an idea as a feedback mechanism that is not bulky for citizens to engage. So for me, I think the duty bearers and we on the demand side should still work hand in hand and make sure we get things done in the appropriate way. I quite appreciate your effort on Ground Zero, and I allowed my two dependable allies there, Abbas and Yusuf, respectively. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bako Abdul Usman, for your contributions. Let's come back to the studio now. Yusuf Goje, in 1 minute. Let's wrap it all up.
All right. We hope and call on the Kaduna State government to expedite action and make the 2022 draft budget available so that citizens would analyze and give them feedback, even though the town hall meeting was not held. Then secondly, to also appeal to the state government, the local government fiscal transparency, accountability and sustainability program grants. We are expecting that state government should also expedite action to release it to the various local governments because that has weakened the implementation of some of the reforms that the program initially supported to kick off in most of the local governments. So the state government approved about 154 million for the 23 local governments based on performance, and we still await the release of those funds. Those local governments really worked hard for those funds, and we call on the government to do that. Thank you very much.
And Danjuma Abbas?
Well, I want to say that a government that adheres to the rule of law inspires the citizenry to action. The size of the GDP of Kaduna State is a contribution not largely by government, but by the citizens of the state. And if the government is keen at improving and walking the talk around this knowledge-based economy, it will be good to promote governance and e-governance and also ensure that the space for citizens' participation is not left out. The budget we are talking about today, the 2022 budget, is hinged around the COVID-19 recovery. And world over, there are compelling evidence that recovery has been seamless and easier for governments that have enabled participatory governance. And without that, we cannot travel the distance. Thank you.
All right. That's about the size of the program today. On Tuesday, God willing, we'll be on again for another package of the program. But before we go, I want to sincerely appreciate Yusuf Goje and Danjuma Abbas Dangwa from the Coalition of Association in Leadership, Peace, Empowerment and Development, CARPED. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us.
All right. I am Ehis Admo. You can call me the peacemaker. And like always, I would say, plant a tree today, water it, and watch it grow. May the good mighty Lord bless and keep us all. Before you claim right of way, make sure you are safe and not sorry.